Very good. Now we're both recording, and we're Steve Struggle and Abraham Weizfeld here discussing the issues of the day. We're beginning a series here, and we're well connected now to be able to bring you this information. Steve, you wanted to talk about the pandemic, the new variant, the Omicron, and
Sure do.
discrimination of the third world, I guess.
Well, it's really kind of shaking the world, you know.
Yeah, this is historic.
I've heard stories that the main place it was found was in South Africa, or it was found in Egypt, or was found somewhere else. They're banning travel. They being the capitalist countries, major capitalist countries are banning travel from Africa. They're not banning it from anywhere else. It's shown up in California and New York and other major states in the United States already. No one wants to do any lockdown or anything different for preventive measures. It just seems that history is repeating itself, and in the sense of the propaganda of the propagation of the belief that everything's going to be okay, and we just have to live with this. And of course, I don't buy that from a social perspective or from a health perspective. So it's just been a very interesting development. In the United States, one party that's very quiet is the anti-vaxxers. You won't hear none from them right now. They're just silent. They're just silent because they can't say anything.
Yeah.
They all say that COVID's a hoax.
Mhm.
Yet, you know, they can't talk to this at all. So
Mhm.
they've been silenced, at least temporarily,
Mhm.
at least within this country.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that really hurts the situation is that the third world and what we will call the underdeveloped countries don't have vaccines even to give out.
Yeah.
And there seems to be no movement to get them back the necessary vaccines that they have.
Mhm.
The struggle we had last year sometime to try and break the patents and to allow local companies or set up manufacturers around the world, there was some movement in some parts of the world where manufacturing capacities have been set up, but in general, that didn't fly at all. So, you know, the little I read about this indicates that those who are not vaccinated always are at greater risk for Omicron or Delta or other variant of COVID infection, and those who are vaccinated at least have a better protection against death. Whether this particular variant goes around the vaccines, et cetera, time will tell. But to me, to not be vaccinated now, especially if say you're in a high risk group, or if you're youth, seems to be rather naive at least and stupid at worst. That's my personal opinion and my political opinion. I don't think the WHO is taking. I think the WHO is taken seriously by the capitalist governments. I'm not saying it's a great organization, but you know, I have some concerns about how this is all being handled, because if we as a world just accept certain risks as well, that's the way it is, then what's that say about our development? When do we fight those risks? Only when it involves profit or territorial expansion. It's just interesting to me how capitalists think. Anyway, that's it for me on that one.
Yeah, I've been following a lot of the information, and it indicates, like in South Africa, only 30% of the population is vaccinated there. And so they're very susceptible to the new variant, which they blame on Botswana. And then it turns out, you know, that there was also this early variant, you know, in Amsterdam too, but they don't talk about that much. They don't talk about that very much. No.
They sure don't. No, they want to talk about that. No. Can't do that. Can't talk about Amsterdam.
Yeah.
No.
Well, with the pandemic, you know, going on and on like this, you know, like it's inevitable that there's going to be new variants, you know, because the virus is fighting. It's not alive, you know, it's just a molecule, but it's still, you know, finding a way, to replicate itself in any way possible, and it's eventually going to find a way
Right.
to beat the vaccine. Now they say they're going to build a new vaccine for a third inoculation, a third dose, that's going to be particular to this variant. But it's, like they're playing a catch-up game, they're losing. And the people who are losing their lives are the ones, who are either unvaccinated, in the first world, and in the
Right.
third world, it's not even a matter of choice, it's a matter of, destiny. And in particular, the Palestine was very severely affected, because Israel refused to give them the vaccine. The first, vaccines that Israel gave to Palestine, finally, it's like only 250, for the elite political figures, probably. And then, even though they had, storage, of vaccines, 1 or 2 million dosages storage, of the AstraZeneca, they didn't give it, to Palestine, until it was, too late, until it was nearly on its expiration date, then they handed it over, and then Palestine said, like, forget it, like, this is useless. And, the whole third world is being treated in that way. And
Yep.
what do
Nobody's
they
talking
expect?
about it.
What do they want? Like, if this implies that they are thinking, that the third worlders are going to be dying off at a greater rate, than anybody else, and they're content, to let it happen. Now, well, that's, the genocidal practice of imperialism, made evident, and that's what's happening right now. Yes. And Cuba is an exception. Cuba made its own vaccine, and it's treating its own population, I understand. Is that what you've heard as well?
Yes, I heard the same thing. Yes, I wish we could get more information on that. I wish we had more knowledge about. Well, we could get it. We have to just take the initiative and find out ourselves.
Yeah.
And contact the Cubans directly,
Yeah.
or through contact, or read their news media, because the U.S. media, New York Times, Washington Post, Associated Press, UPI, they aren't going to tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
They're all, but it would be good to find out just get more information about that vaccine, and also what Cuba thinks about the Omicron variant, because I'm sure their scientists have something to say about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
The bourgeois political culture is so pathetic. During the first confinement, I was caught in France, and there 40% of the population believed this Dr. Raoult there, who was saying that the pandemic was not a pandemic, that it was just, normal winter flu, and it was going to end, in springtime. And then it didn't. And then France, was having like 1,000 people dying a day. And so they finally figured out, that they needed to wear masks. And then they found out that the government had destroyed all the masks that they had in storage. And then they had to get, like a supply, like it's like a comedy of errors. It's incredible. But, basically there's a lack of infrastructure, which has destroyed the possibility of having a treatment by convalescent plasma that is the only sort of, real antiviral agent available, because those people who have been sick have the antibodies, those who have recovered have recovered, they have the antibodies, to stop the actual virus, the antiviral antibodies, whereas the vaccine is only prepared to combat, the virus in terms of its transmission feasibility through these spikles that they're called, the spikes on the outside of the cocoon that carries the virus inside.
Right.
So the vaccine is, an RNA, mRNA, treatment, that combats, the transmission of the virus, once it's inside of you into your cells. But it doesn't treat the virus itself. Once you've become infected, then you're, in the hospital, and then you have to be treated with a whole bunch of other things.
Right.
So
right.
It's a treatment, the vaccine. It works, but it's not like a solution. The solution, being used in China it's being used by Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, and it's being used, for healthcare workers in Los Angeles, I've read, which is plasma convalescent antibody treatment. And they, can get the sample of it. They can clone it, in a laboratory and make, an injection of monoclonal antibodies, that actually treat the virus itself for either people who have been infected or to immunize people so that they don't get infected. This is possible scientifically, but they're not implementing it. Why? It's, labor intensive, needs a lot of nurses to, to transfer, to get a transfer of a blood donation, from the people who have, overcome the illness. And then they have to transfer the blood, plasma after it's been concentrated by centrifuge into somebody else to immunize them. So, this is very labor intensive, and they don't have the people, because
Right.
they're overwhelmed, with the people who are already sick. So they say, oh yeah, well, the magic cure is, a vaccine, because that's easy. They just have to spend money, public funds, and build up, the billions of the pharmaceutical companies. And
Okay.
then, as we see now, it's not really, uh, uh, effective in terms of the possibility of new varieties, that are going to be stronger in their transmission than the vaccine can combat. So, well, this is, like known that the convalescent plasma is the way to cope with any sort of, a pandemic. And this has been used, for a long time. I knew about this, treatment from a Jewish story that I read. It was about this family in which the father was ill with the plague. And so the son, was trying to figure out what to do. And he, was a scientific kind of a kid. And they had a horse, because the father was a peddler. And so he took the blood from his father, which was infected the horse. The horse was strong enough, to develop the antibodies, to cope with it after a week. And so the kid then took the blood of the horse, injected into the father, who got the antibodies, and then survived. This is the story that I read, so I investigated this further. And sure enough, that there was also, testing and usage, of this technique throughout the world. And I have the whole sort of list of research that I've done, in the article that I wrote that was published in a Palestine journal in Gaza, advising, the local people to be able to use convalescent plasma because they didn't have the vaccine, or there was no vaccine at the time, but they didn't even get the vaccine when it was available, but they could be using convalescent plasma. This could be a general practice throughout the third world, but the third world, as well, is overwhelmed, and they don't have the personnel to be able to do that sort of thing. It's only in China that I think this is being used on a mass scale.
Wow. Interesting to hear that. I know. I think I saw that in one of your prior videos on COVID. You talked about that.
Yeah, the difference being that, the way the healthcare system works in the capitalist system is that each individual is treated as a patient. Everybody's divided up into being a patient, and each patient is treated according to their symptoms. But there's no social biology. There's no general treatment of society as a whole. There's no sense of society being a biological organism that needed to be treated and protected. Because
that's true. Very true. Very true. Very true.
And this sense of a collectivity is missing, and this is what is making this medical treatment not effective. So society has to be treated. Each individual society, and now society as a whole in the world, has to be treated as a biological organism, and we have to protect ourselves collectively. And this has not yet entered into the bourgeois, consciousness, because it can't. They're operating on individualism, like a meritocracy, type of a system, which cannot conceive of a collectivity that has needs of its own. So I'm pessimistic about, how this is going. And I knew that this is going to be a long duration struggle, and it's going on even longer than anyone expected.
Well, yeah, I guess with me though, I never expect capitalist crises to end too soon.
Yeah.
So I kind of perceived when it first started, it would be years before this ever got under control, if it ever did get under control, because capitalist science
Yeah,
seems to be about making money off diseases and not eradicating disease.
exactly.
This is my general view of science in general. If the money that the world, not just the United States, but the world, the money the world spent on military armaments, public relations, bailing out banks and companies, was spent on health care and it is focusing seriously on treatment and eradicating diseases. I think a lot of diseases in the world would be either gone from the books or on in serious decline. There simply isn't the interest, like you said.
Yeah,
The social approach is lacking. It's all individual approach.
yeah,
So that's how I see it. So I'm sorry that the pandemic is continuing. However, without a change in how people and government, people, one, demanding into it, I mean seriously, like demanding into this, and two, governments and entities are about making money. They're not about ending anything.
yeah,
Like Pfizer, Moderna are making buku dollars off of this pandemic.
yeah,
So I don't see them ever wanting it to end, quite frankly,
yeah,
unless they can find some way or some kind of drug you can take as a prevention, and we all gonna have to prescribe that drug, and then they're still making money.
yeah.
So I just kind of I would like to have a different view of those human beings involved in those companies, but I think they're a bunch of sick, greedy human beings who don't really care about nothing but how rich they can get, and they're getting pretty damn rich off this. Let me tell you.
Yeah, yeah. No, what you say about science is so true, so true. When I was studying sciences at the University of Waterloo, one of the anti-Vietnam War activists, in the United States, sent me the congressional record, which this senator, I forget his name, but he was an anti-war senator. I was at a presentation with him one time, and he published the whole list of military contracts with universities in the congressional record. And so the activist sent me the information because it included, universities that the military was investing in research in Canada as well. American military in Canadian University, my Canadian University at the University of Waterloo in Ontario. So, I did an expose of this, wrote a whole report, it was published by the student government. And then after that, I had no motivation, to study sciences anymore, because what was I going to do, after completing a degree in sciences or going, into further research, research for what, for the military? That's where the money was. That's where the resources were available, to make use of the research. And so, it's dead end. So I quit sciences. That's why I quit and switched over into political science. Yeah.
Unfortunately, what it is, but that's how I see the pandemic. And I think, actually, though, I really want them to put a challenge out to people who are so-called hesitant toward the vaccine. And my challenge to them is: would you rather die? Or be sick for a long time, or take a chance of being healthy? Because that's really what it comes down to. Ultimately, I chose to get vaccinated because I said, well, maybe I can avoid COVID, but if I get infected, there's a good chance, high probability I'll get infected. It's because of what I do for a living. There's no protection I have against the disease just destroying me.
Yeah.
So I would just say those who are so-called hesitant based on just not trusting corporations, I understand that. And if there's some natural way you can do it, please share with me. But I don't think that works right now.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of stuck with science. Though when I say stuck, that's a reality you have to face.
Yeah.
It's kind of like buying car insurance. They make you buy it. Even if you didn't buy it, you get a wreck. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It's just I'm just challenging people who were hesitant based on whatever, because I've seen communities where where people don't wear masks,
Mm,
where they don't wear masks, and they usually are led by Republicans
mm,
or hedonists or libertarians, right? Libertarians, and COVID is just going rampant.
mm,
It
mm.
just does what it wants to do.
Yeah. Well,
You
they're
know,
going to end up infecting their grandparents and sacrificing the whole older generation. After the
well,
grandparents die, then they, let them think about it, like in that context.
yeah, and that's a very good context, I think, which we should think about it, because let's say you don't give a damn about society, which I think is kind of a screwed up way to looking at things. Let's say you don't care about society. The average person does care about their grandparents.
Yeah.
Yes, the average person does care about mom and dad's health. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. So that actually might be a good way to spread the message. Thank you for
That's
sharing
right.
that.
That's the way to do it. Yeah. Right. And there's no
Yeah,
alternative, right now, the vaccine. I have 2 doses of the vaccine. And
right.
then I had a blood test done by a medical study. And it turned out that I also have the antibodies, from having been convalescent. I was infected by by COVID, and I didn't even know it.
You didn't even know. Wow.
I didn't
Wow.
even
Isn't
know
that
it. So,
something?
yeah, back then, like I'm not, a typical sort of, biological organism, because I've been a vegetarian for 53 years, and I'm not susceptible, to being ill, from a viral infection. So I'm solid in that way. But
Pretty good. That's good.
you
Well,
know,
that shows
even
the importance of
even
how a proper diet can help too.
oh yeah,
Just in general. Again, the capitalists who make chips and junk. Remember, the
yeah,
average rat won't eat those chips. They don't. I mean, the junk the capitalists make, the average rat won't eat it.
yeah,
They'll eat crackers. I mean, they want the flesh, they want the meat, they want the corn, they want that kind of food, and they will pass over junk, candy. They know better than to eat that nonsense
oh yeah.
because they get sick. Because they
Pig,
get sick.
yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you
pig.
for that information about the diet too. I think it's really overlooked quite a bit.
Oh,
Yep.
I was, it's not only for health reasons that I became vegetarian. It was also for ethical reasons. I can't see, like killing another animal, when it's not necessary. So it also saved my life, because when I had my first back operation for scoliosis and I couldn't walk or breathe anymore, and I ended up getting infected, with blood that was contaminated, that was, brought over by the Red Cross from the American prisons, where they were paying prisoners $7 for a bag of blood. And
Oh
then they would
boy.
bring it into Canada, and then offer this, as transfusion blood for hospital operations. And so I got it. I got hepatitis C, which was mortal. 20 years life expectancy after that.
Mm-hmm.
But on vegetarian diet, I lived for 28 years and then got cured with the treatment that developed from interferon alpha 2b, which is an
There you go.
antiviral that one of the first antivirals that cured me completely, complete eradication. So science can do these things when it has the resources and the research and everything like that. But it's the laboratory that developed the polio vaccine in Toronto, CNOT Laboratories at the University of Toronto, public facility, and that's why I developed the polio vaccine. They didn't put a patent on it, so everybody could get it, and it worked. And then what does the university do after that? They sold the laboratory to a private company, and it's never developed anything since.
Good old university logic,
Yeah.
Good old academic logic. Go with the private institutions all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Weizfeld, that's all from me today. I appreciate the time with you. It was
Very
good,
good.
very good discussion.
So now we have the videos, to be able to upload to your
Right.
YouTube channel, and looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Great.
Excellent. Very good. Me too. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. See you next week then.
All right. Bye-bye.